Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about healing and also your inner teacher with special emphasis on inner, inner teacher. All right, we've moved on to another section here of the text. We're in chapter 7, now section 4 of the text, and the title is Healing as the Recognition of Truth. So that's what the next at least 2 or 3 videos will cover. We'll go through some of the main points here in this section of the text. So we're talking about healing and we're emphasizing your inner teacher. So healing in the world is misunderstood. Surprise. Right? I mean, shocker that, isn't it, that we would get things completely backward here in the world, which we do, and we're aiming to turn our perception right side up, not on its head. It's already on its head. It's upside down. We're righting it under the guidance of our inner teacher. The Holy Spirit, the voice for God, the universal inspiration, the answer, comforter, friend with a capital F. Call your inner teacher what you will. Call your inner teacher Mike or Betty or Elvis Presley or Sue or whatever. Your guide. Call your inner teacher your guides, plural, if you want to. There's one teacher, and you may call this teacher whatever you want to. It's a part of your mind, inner. We cannot emphasize that enough. Here in the world, we think of healing as healing the physical body. That is generally the first thing that comes to mind. Now, happily, modernly at least, there is more emphasis on the mind and mental health. And there is more. It's by no means universal, but there's more recognition that healing is of the mind, which it is, all of it. The physical body follows the mind, and not the other way around. Now, when you heal your mind, the physical body most often will follow that in some way, which is not to be construed as a guarantee that you can cure chronic illnesses. That's actually not what we're saying. That may or may not happen. And whether it does or does not is not the point. So to focus solely on that, the physical body, is to miss the point. Healing is a mental process. It's in the mind. This entire course is a course in mind training, and the emphasis is in the mind, where it belongs, where it belongs. So if this is a helpful image for you, think of it this way. The mind is the cause, the physical body is an effect. The mind is the cause, the body is an effect. The world that appears to be outside of us is an effect. Which is primary, mind. So that, of course, can seem ludicrous to us, especially the first time you hear it. It can seem ridiculous, insane, or revolutionary even, but through repetition, we begin to digest these ideas. We begin to contemplate them, which is why we repeat them all the time, isn't it? And we think about them, and we begin to put them into practice. We begin to integrate them. And through our integration, our doing this course, our practice, our practical application, the results of that application show us, they prove to us that these ideas are true. Want proof? Prove it to yourself. No one else is going to prove it to you. You'll prove it to yourself through your own practical application of these ideas. Now, this is not just true for A Course in Miracles. It is true for all of spiritual practice, no matter what the tradition or traditions, because one can certainly open many doors. They all lead to the same place in the end. And let's all be glad that that's the case. So it's actually, when we think about healing the mind, it's not God that does the healing. Healing is of God, but it's not through God, because God does not recognize all of our distinctions and separate divisions and all of the nonsense that we've made up. We've made all of these distinctions and divisions up. They're not real. God doesn't recognize them. So healing is of God, but God's not the one that performs it. His voice, the universal inspiration, the Holy Spirit, your inner teacher, heals. God knows us as perfectly whole. The perfectly whole is not in need of healing. Why? Because it's perfectly whole. So while we believe that we're not whole and we believe we need healing, then we have most need of it. So what constitutes healing is the result of God's laws in a mind that does not know God. In our deluded, supposedly separated state, we don't know God. We think that we're separate from God. We think we're cut off from God. We think we're outside the mind of God. And that terrifies us. Plain and simple. So we're afraid of God. We're afraid of everything, which explains the state of panic and suffering and fear that we see in the world. We're not separate. There is not and has never been any separation. So you can see healing as our recognition of this in the mind, our recognition of the fact that the separation never occurred. Now, is this gradual? Well, for most of us, it certainly does look gradual, doesn't it? We have a gradual program, in a manner of speaking, of healing that we call a process with repetition, with lots of repetition of these ideas over and over and over again until the 5 millionth time that we hear the idea, we actually begin to relate to it and put it into practice. Yeah, and these ideas are the same ideas presented in many different ways on any given day. So through this, we come to accept atonement for ourselves. Atonement being the correction of our inner teacher. Correcting our perception, the way we see things, which is upside down. We're turning it right side up. That's the prerequisite for knowledge. So we learn to perceive things as they are. From there, perception is easily translated into knowledge. In other words, we awaken and know God, which means we know ourselves. Yes, that verbal math. Quite naturally, the ego resists this. It's only correct about one thing, that you will set it aside, and you will. And you don't have to do it today. If what you're hearing today seems bizarre to you, that's okay. There's a reason you're still listening. I know. Yeah, there is. There's a reason that you're here watching this channel instead of all of the other content out there. If you wish to substitute another word for content, you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of mindless drivel out there that you could be spending your time on. You could be pursuing that if you wanted to, yet you're interested in spirituality, and take it one step further than that. You're interested in A Course in Miracles. Mhm. So we do this course under the guidance of our inner teacher. We have a choice of practicing these ideas, applying them, putting them into daily practical application in our lives, or we have a choice to reject them and run and hide and go back to whatever it was that you were doing before. It didn't make you happy. I know it didn't, or you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be on the spiritual path in the first place. So there's a heavy amount of honesty in this path, which is why I say consistently that it is an adult endeavor. It is. It's for grown-ups, and you're a grown-up. So whatever message your inner teacher gives you from that, I invite you to listen to that and pay attention. Yeah. So the Holy Spirit is in you. It's not separate. Many of us were raised in the Judeo-Christian tradition, and at least speaking from my own experience in this lifetime, the Holy Spirit was kind of a mystery that nobody, including the adults in Sunday school class, which I was made to attend, and so attended and asked those questions. Yeah, I was that kid. Wasn't satisfied with any of the answers, such as, why do we say that God discriminates? Yeah, I didn't have an answer for that one. The adults didn't have an answer for that one. Actually, I did have the answer. God does not discriminate. Perfect love does not discriminate. So 80% of the world isn't doomed because they don't go to this particular building on Sunday at 11 o'clock. I never resonated with those ideas, and perhaps you didn't either. Yeah. I suspect that's the case because that is the case for many course students. So this is universal. Everyone has their own experience, but I never got satisfactory answers to the question, what is the Holy Spirit? Nobody seemed to know. So I had, as a lot of people have, this conception that the Holy Spirit is outside of us, this magical, weird, bizarre thing that nobody seems to know about, yet everyone seems to insist exists with perfect certainty, yet we don't know why. Well, perhaps this course helps you out with that. Yeah, I hope that may be the case. The Holy Spirit's part of your mind, the part of your mind that sees truly and teaches you to see truly, the part of your mind that speaks for God, your reality in God, one with God. Having never left your source, incidentally, capital S. So, in order to teach us that he's in us, the Holy Spirit works through us. So, in order for us to realize that the Holy Spirit is in us, we've got to allow him to work through us. We've got to practically apply the ideas of A Course in Miracles. We've got to extend love to our brother. We've got to forgive the world, space-time, the ego, everything in it, and the Son of God. Forgive the Son of God. As you see your brother, so do you see yourself. Why? There is no separation. What appears to be a separation in space and time is just an appearance. It's nothing, like a passing cloud. There is no separation at all, period. So as you see your brother, of course you see yourself. Who else? Your brother is you. You are your brother. The Holy Spirit, in order to teach us that the Holy Spirit is part of our mind, we must share the Holy Spirit. We must extend love, allow our inner teacher to work through us. Because we're always teaching, so let's teach perfect oneness. We're all invited to do that. Our inner teacher reminds us of perfect oneness. And our inner teacher is in us, inner, part of our mind. So, returning to the subject of healing, when you heal, you're remembering the laws of God and you're forgetting the laws of the ego. So forgetting is properly seen here, as we've discussed, a better form of remembering. We forget all of the BS, the nonsense, and remember who we really are. Now, this is what happens when you heal. You're remembering who you are. You're remembering who you are. Do this by seeing your brother as you, seeing your brother as the Son of God, seeing your brother as God, an extension of God. So you see yourself. Each and every one of us was created by God's extending himself. Perfect love extends only itself. This is what it does. God extends only himself. You are the extension of God. You are the thought of God. Thoughts remain in the mind of the thinker. Ideas leave not their source. Thought of God, you've never left your source. Who are you, really? Yeah. Yes. So, again, when you encounter extraordinary resistance, understand that this is part of the path. It's the ego that's afraid that you'll simply have no need for it and set it aside. So, what looks like a gradual program of awakening, what looks to be a process accomplished over time, is in fact, as it appears, a series of recognitions that you are one with your creator. It's a series of acts, mental acts of forgiveness of the Son of God, in which we overlook the apparent differences. We look beyond them. They're not there. There is no separation of any kind. Never has been, never will be. In fact, there's no past or future. There's no time. So, what I feel is important to mention here is that these ideas are not the way most of us were raised. That's not how we were conditioned. Yet, the fact that you show up every day in your spiritual practice with your dedication and commitment to spiritual practice means you're listening to your inner teacher at least some of the time. And for that, I thank you. We all do. It's very, very important to nurture this dedication and to enhance this dedication and to remember your inner teacher more often and to ask your inner teacher more often for guidance. Your inner teacher is part of your mind. The Holy Spirit is you. It's part of you. It's the higher part of our mind to which we're invited to appeal for guidance instead of the ego. It's a choice. As we do, we're healed. We heal. We simply begin to see things as they are. The more we do it, the more we see it. Because what appears to be out there is in our mind. So here's something. Anything that is beautiful here in the world, yes, it's illusion. However, I invite you to see this as symbolic of our oneness, symbolic of our limitlessness, our joy, our happiness, beauty, magnificence as Christ, as the Son of God. I invite you to see anything that's beautiful, like a beautiful sunset or a gorgeous meal, whatever it is, a beautiful conversation, a hug, anything in this world that's beautiful is symbolic of our own beauty as Christ. Now, anything that is not wholly joyous is an opportunity for forgiveness. It's an opportunity for perceiving it truly, rather than the way we see it in our delusion. The delusion, separation, identification with the ego. Seeing ourselves as separate. Anytime we do, we experience discomfort. It may be very acute, as in a fit of rage, or extraordinary sadness, the depression, anxiety, or maybe it's just an annoyance, or a rush to judgment. Maybe you see something on your social media feed. Perfect example, right? People post whatever they want to, and they can, so they do. And whatever that looks like, if you rush to judgment, that is in fact an opportunity to forgive. So that's what we're invited to do, is recognize these opportunities under the guidance of our inner teacher, because our inner teacher is part of our mind. The Holy Spirit's not a mystery. Not a mystery. God's not a mystery. The Holy Spirit's not a mystery. There's no mystery. There's only perfect oneness. We introduce all of the complications, so let's set those complications aside. Yes, let us do that today. Okay. So thank you, as always, for tuning in. And we've had a number of people recently subscribe, so thank you for that. If you've not subscribed, the red arrow that you see in the corner of your screen here is the subscription button, and we'd love to have you. We've got a growing international community, and it's very, very cool because we can interact with each other from opposite sides of the world. It's really cool. That's one of the beauties of modern technology, is you can reach somebody on the other side of the world. So if you have questions or you'd like to leave comments here, please feel welcome to do so. All right. And yes, let's continue to apply these ideas. Understanding them on an intellectual thinking basis is one thing. It's another thing entirely to apply them. And that's where the action is. That's where the real learning is, because that is where you prove to yourself that you are one with God. That's where you prove to yourself that all of these ideas in this course are true. All right. Thank you.